Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. What do we got today, Rick?
We got our Week 17 starts and sits.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's poppin'? Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast.
Are you trying to be our new
No.
voice guy?
I'm practicing. Record those new tracks at the beginning. That's not going to happen. I will not replace the majestic voice of whoever that man is.
You don't even remember his name.
I don't remember his name.
I don't either, to be honest.
It's totally fine, but he did a fantastic job.
He did.
Recording that,
I love
that
it.
intro track. Welcome then to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name's Morgan Colby. Rick Lemon.
What's up?
As always, we got starts and sits today on the Wednesday show. Tomorrow, instead of Friday, we're going to do the injury report. And then next week, wow, playoff football.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I love the sad fantasy football season's over. Really sad that that's over. But I do love the postseason very much.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you get to the end of the fantasy season, you're like, well, it's over. And then you realize that there's this little extra gold nugget.
Dude,
for an entire month where you have no stake in the game besides your own team.
You know what you could do, though, if you want to.
We're not going to have our own team in there, but I'm going to root for the Browns if they make
If they make it. Yeah, that's a big if right now.
So we just don't know yet. But anyway, we're going to jump into our starts and sits for the week, help you out with that, and then we'll move on to injury report tomorrow, and then they'll conclude the content for the week. Before we jump into that, check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, @TheFFChamps, on Instagram, @TheFantasyChampions. Like us at Facebook.com/TheFantasyChampions. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. If you're listening on YouTube, or watching on YouTube, I should say, subscribe. Excuse me, I almost burped. Click the bell for notifications, like and comment down below. We can help you with any questions you have. We're not doing a Q&A this week, as we said, only 3 shows. So if you have any questions, we will be willing to answer them in the comments or on TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
So let's jump into our Week 17 starts and sits. Do you have anything to say before we jump into that? Because I cut you off several times.
I think the only thing I was going to say, if you still want to play fantasy in the playoffs, you can just do daily fantasy.
Yeah. Lose all your money.
Yeah.
They get you to buy in to that stuff because you win one week and then you think you're like you won $5 and you're like, oh my god,
That's literally
oh
me
my
right
god,
now.
I'm gonna win the jackpot next week, and then you like lose everything. You're like,
That's
I won like $100 and I bet it all the next week.
See, that's where what you shouldn't do is if you win $100, don't bet all $100.
Put it in your savings account and don't gamble.
Take out like 20 of the 100 you won, put 80 into your account,
right,
and use the 20 to bet again.
See? Maybe.
Or just gamble it all because that's fun.
It's funny because I played like 3 weeks of DFS this year.
Yeah.
Last year I was like every single week. I didn't do any DFS this year. Don't know why. But anyway, let's jump into our Week 17 starts and sits. We're going to start with the quarterback position, go forward from there. So start of the week at quarterback, Tom Brady, the big man on campus. He's been having some pretty good weeks. Can you roll off the last 3 weeks, Rick, of the playoffs for people?
Well, he had 23 before his bye week against Kansas City, which is solid. Had the bye week, and then 15 against Minnesota. That was kind of bad.
Yep.
Then he had 23 against Atlanta. Another solid, very good performance. And then in your championship game, he had 29 in the first half. Did not play in the third quarter of that game. They put Blaine Gabbert in.
Don't you love that?
For someone who had him playing against Alvin Kamara in the championship, it really pissed me off because I was like, Brady's about to get like 50 fantasy points.
You started him?
Of course I did.
Okay.
What? You're upset that I started him over?
No, I'm not.
Over Ryan Tannehill?
No.
Against Green Bay?
I'm not at all.
Because Tannehill
that was a good decision. I thought you were starting him over
points.
somebody else more important.
No.
Just for fun because you like to start Brady over.
No. I started Brady over him in our listener league, actually.
Yeah.
And Brady was doing great, and then they took him out, and I was like, wow. I'll take the 29 points, but he should have had 40.
Did you lose that league?
I did. We lost our listener league in the championship. I did make the championship.
Sorry.
But credit to him. He had Alvin Kamara and scored 170 fantasy points.
How much did you have?
Like 130 something.
Oh, wow.
But I was the second highest scorer. He was the first highest scorer.
You know what I hate about that? You know what I hate? Not to break down that game. We're supposed to be
league.
talking about Tom Brady, but Alvin Kamara goes off and gets 50-something fantasy points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just wrecks it. And, like, he really had, like, an up-and-down season, but he's the league winner. He's going to end up being, like, a top 3 running back next year just because of that.
Yeah.
Which is horribly ridiculous, but I can't wait to break down Alvin Kamara's 2020 season because it's a cluster. It's all over the road. But anyway, so Tom Brady start against Atlanta.
Yep.
Last time he played Atlanta, he had 23 points.
Yep. He's probably going to do that again this
week.
He's
probably going to do that again. I don't see him going past like 30, 35 because this is a game that there's nothing else for them to win.
Right.
So I don't know that they're going to, I mean, they'll keep Brady in there, I think. See, this is where it gets tough. Are they going to pull Brady? Do you think they're going to pull him prematurely?
Yeah, that is the concern. And this happened with the same player, actually, for me, like 3 years ago when Brady was on the Patriots, unfortunately. And he was it was like the last year he was a good fantasy quarterback. He was like the QB3 in all of fantasy.
Yeah.
And week 17 happened. It was our championship game, and I benched him because they were like, they had already clinched the 1 seed in the AFC. So I'm like, and all the reports were saying that Brady was going to get benched and all this stuff. Brady did get benched, but it was like 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like he played the whole game, got 30 fantasy points, and I lost by like 5 fantasy points.
One thing's for sure, Tom Brady is a competitor, so
Tom Brady.
He has a lot of say in whether or not he's going to play or not.
Yeah.
So I would say play Tom Brady without hesitation this week. If they do pull him out of the game for whatever reason, I apologize.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, not my fault. You shouldn't be doing Week 17 championship.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would start him this week. Atlanta too. They give up a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks, but I think you saw that last time he played. Let's move to the sit of the week at quarterback. Who is it, Russ? I mean, Rick.
Well, I think you just gave it away.
Who is it, Rick?
Russell
not
Wilson. Which is interesting because you drafted him high. He through the first 5-6 weeks was the QB1.
There were talks about him being
QB2.
MVP.
Because he was. I think he was probably the MVP of the league through like the first 5 weeks of the season. Really, I'd say even through the first, like up until like week 8, I think he was probably the league MVP. So the first half of the season. Since that point, he has been really just bad.
Yeah.
I want to pull up the numbers of where he ranks quarterback-wise since that point. He actually was better this week than I thought he was going to be. I think he had 18 fantasy points, 19 fantasy points against what was it? The Rams this week, which was really, really, really impressive. But impressive to me because last time he played the Rams, he had like 5. Or what did he have? He had 10. So yeah, that's what I was expecting again. But yeah, since week 8, he has 22, which is good. But then 19, 18, 14, 15, 23, good. 13, 19. He scored over 20 twice in the last about 8 weeks. So against San Francisco, a really tough matchup again. I think he's going to get another like 18 fantasy points.
Yeah, it would not shock me. San Francisco has obviously had that tough defense, but I mean, since the midway point, like week 9, I mean, let's just going over the first 9 weeks of the season, 31, 34, 36, 21, 25, 32, 28, 24.
Yep.
That pace right there, if you were to pace that out to a full 16, he's a QB1. I mean, it's not even a question. And then he had 11, 20, 14, 16, 23, 13, 19.
So on the season, you look at it and you're like, Russell Wilson is great. He's the QB4 in all fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, why would I sit the QB4 in all fantasy? Since week 9, Russell Wilson is the QB11, and he's played 8 games. A lot of these guys ahead of him have played 7.
Right.
So Baker Mayfield, Drew Lock, which is disgusting, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins all played 7 games all around his area. He's played the most games.
That's disgusting.
It's gross, and he's averaging. Let's see, he before that point, so the first few weeks of the season, I believe he was averaging around 30 fantasy points. Since then, Russell Wilson is averaging. Gosh, I can't even find him. Where is he? Oh, there he is. 17.83 points per game since week 9. which is not great. That's like streamable.
It's worth a bench, especially in week 16. Week 17. In your fantasy championships, like if you start him and then like usually I say roll with your studs, but like just since I would say if Russ had like 3 bad games in a row and then you were in the fantasy championships and he was the QB 3-4 and I would be like, yeah, sure, start
It's
him.
been the whole second
but
half.
it's been the whole second half of the year that he's not been good. So it's not worth taking the risk of starting Russ this week.
Second half, he's averaging 17 fantasy points a game. In the first half of the season, he averaged 30 fantasy points a game.
I can't believe
he was the
guy's 33 years
QB1
old.
week 1 through 8, playing less games than Patrick Mahomes. He was that good in the beginning of the season, and he's been that bad since then.
Yeah. So I would sit Russ. Let's talk about some other guys, starting with the running back position. This man was drafted in the 3rd round, and a lot of people expected that kind of production out of him. Is David Johnson. He kind of has had an up and down season.
Yep.
Including
battled
injuries.
COVID and injury.
Yeah, he had 18, 6, 11, 10, 11, 13, 14, and then 1 in the first half of the season. And then I don't know if he got COVID or he got hurt, either one. He missed 3 weeks and then had 10 against Indianapolis and then was out another day. Was that the COVID game?
Yeah.
The one game he missed against Chicago. And then he had 18 and 27 the last 2 weeks. So I feel like this one almost is self-explanatory. I feel like he's kind of been, taking out the last 2 weeks. He's kind of been on the edge. He's like a low-end RB2 on a week-to-week basis.
He's actually been, he's been better than I think people give him credit for, though.
I mean, he was a 3rd-round pick, so I think a lot of people are giving him a lot of credit.
Well, people in the offseason. But since the season started, people are like, he's a bust. He's like in the same category as like Le'Veon Bell and Fournette, but he hasn't. He's actually been decent.
So, but I think the numbers that he has put up over the course of time is like mid-range RB2 kind of numbers. Lately, he's been putting up low-end RB1 numbers. And against Tennessee, it's one of the easiest matchups of the year. So if you're concerned about starting David Johnson, I'm here to tell you not to be concerned about starting David Johnson. He's a pretty safe bet to have a good week this week.
Yeah, I think one noticeable thing that they've been trying to do, although this week he kind of went back to it, but in week 15, what really caught my eye was the 11 targets, 11 catches for 106 yards.
Okay.
And that's what people were hoping they would use him as a real pass catching back, as well as getting like the 15, 16 carries.
Yeah.
Because he has been getting a good amount of carries all year, but he's been getting targeted like 2-3 times in the offense. But the last few weeks he's been getting targeted a lot. This week he only had 3 targets again, but he was so good on the ground that it didn't matter.
Right.
And he scored touchdowns. And this week against Tennessee, if they give him like even close to that 11 target mark again, he's going to explode. He's a great start.
Tell us the sit of the week at running back.
The sit of the week at running back is Mike Davis against the Saints. Mike Davis was really good.
Now, I do want to know if sorry to cut you off. If Christian McCaffrey, I don't think he's going to play this week, but
at this point,
if he does play, obviously start McCaffrey.
Yeah.
But assuming that Mike Davis is a start this week or he's starting for the Panthers at running back this week, we will set him. But go ahead.
Yeah. Mike Davis, he was really good at first when McCaffrey went down. He was consistently getting 19, 25. And then over the course of the season, he just hasn't really been good. Since that point, one of these games McCaffrey did come back in against the Chiefs, so that game you can take out. But since week 5 against Atlanta, he's had, as the starting running back, 9, 6, 6, 6, 14, good, 9, 23, great, and the last 2 weeks, 7, 8. I mean, he's really just a flex at best. Or I mean, he's a decent flex, right, in deeper leagues, but people have been treating him like, he based off the beginning of the season. I feel like people have been treating him like he's a real RB2 with McCaffrey gone. Like Sleeper had said, he's a high end RB2 this week, and then he gets 8 points. If you just look at the numbers, he really hasn't been great. And against the Saints, who are a fantastic run stopping defense, it's not going to look good for Mike Davis this week. I'm not playing him.
Even against Green Bay, who is an extremely good matchup, Mike Davis had 7 points,
4.2 yards a carry.
Yeah, it was gross. I mean, and then against Washington, a tougher matchup, he had 8, and so New Orleans being one of the toughest matchups in the entire league for running backs. It's not going to look good for him. Last time he played New Orleans and he started in that game, I believe, he had 6 points.
Yeah, they could. They need McCaffrey back. Like, people remember at the beginning of the season, people were like, "Oh, Mike Davis is gonna split with McCaffrey when he comes back." It's like, that's not gonna happen.
Sorry, not sorry. I mean,
For
the
next
first
year.
game back, he had 30 points anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And in that game, Mike Davis had like six carries, seven carries.
Right. Yeah, so I totally agree with that. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. Deonte Johnson at Cleveland. Me and Rick were talking exclusively on the show. We should just pre-record the entire pre-show.
I know, because we just talk about football.
Yeah. But anyway, we were talking about Deonte Johnson drops everything that hits his hands. And we also talked about how this season he missed 3 games and he had 140 targets. I mean, he was on pace, really, if you take the games that he played, for like 170 targets this year, which is absolutely insane. The reason why Deonte Johnson, just forget about the drops, forget about the possibility that he could be benched because of drops. Does he lead the league in drops?
He does, but I don't know if this is
updated.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
But anyway, so CD Lamb, is that CD Lamb? I see his second drops. Oh my God. But anyway, yeah. So Deonte Johnson, he's going to get a large target share as usual. He usually catches about 8 passes a game. His efficiency through the air hasn't been great. It's around 9 yards per reception, 9 to 10 yards per reception. But if he catches a touchdown and he gets those 8 targets and he gets like 80 receiving yards, he's probably going to put up a 15-point week. And in the past couple weeks, he's actually been relatively good for the Steelers outside of him dropping passes and having that game where he got benched because of it. He had 15 against Cincinnati, 17 against Indianapolis, 17 against Washington. So, I mean, I think against Cleveland, in a game where, I think if I'm the Steelers, there's not much to play for. They clinched the divisions, correct?
Yes, with the win this week, they clinched it.
With them not really having much to play for, I don't know that they need to roll them out. But from the Steelers, I would love to eliminate the Browns because they're a division rival. So,
yeah,
that would be fun. But anyway, I think against Cleveland, it's a safe bet that he could probably get 10 to 12 targets and 8 catches and have a really great week.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Deonte Johnson. And I was telling him before the show, like, Deonte Johnson is so frustrating because he really does drop so many passes. And it's like, man, I wonder if, like, Juju was in the spot. I was thinking to myself, like,
he's not the same receiver.
No, you're right. They're very different players. But, like, any really talented route runner who's, like, pretty explosive and quick. No, because he's different as well. But like someone,
he kind of plays the outside.
Someone on a different team, right? Who plays a similar
Allen
style.
Robinson.
Sure. Like, how good would Allen Robinson
kind of the slot
be?
receiver too.
Yeah, but like let's use him as an example. Like, he would be even better than Deonte Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Because of the drops. But as long as Deonte Johnson gets a target share, he's gonna put up fantasy numbers, and he has. Since week 9, he has 10, 11, 16, 13, 12, 7. And that was the game he got benched in. He got benched, and he got 7 targets still. And then 13, 14 last 2 weeks. He's going to get double-digit targets.
It's clear that Ben Roethlisberger likes him.
It is, and it's clear Mike Tomlin likes him because there's so many design plays for him as well. Because he's a great player with the ball in his hands, right? Yeah. And that's the thing. And he's a good route runner. He just cannot catch the football. But it doesn't matter. If you give him 14 targets and he catches 8 of them, that's good. That's a very good fantasy day, or most likely a good fantasy day. Since week 7, he is the wide receiver 4 in all of fantasy. And in a great matchup, that's a must start.
Yeah, definitely. I can't believe he's that high.
Yeah. I mean, he's
probably one of the most underrated wide receivers in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Considering that he has the target share that he has.
It's because people hate him. People hate him as a football player. Like, I've seen like so many people be like, he's not a good player because he drops all the time. But if we're looking at fantasy, we're just looking at stats. That's what gets you fantasy points. And Deonte Johnson gets stats.
Yeah. So let's move on to wide receiver sit of the week. I'm just gonna we'll go through this one quickly because it's not really. You can sit T. Higgins, AJ Green, and Tyler Boyd. And the reason why I say that is because A, they're playing Baltimore. B, they don't have a quarterback who can throw the ball. And C, they're not going to get into scoring position in this game. So it's pretty safe to say that these players are probably not going to have the best week.
Yeah, I think one of them has had a good week like every every week. I don't think Tyler Boyd played this week. He did have a concussion.
I mean, if you want to, you can play the Bengals Russian roulette with the wide receiver position.
Right, exactly. It's like AJ Green had 8 fantasy points, so that's not great. I think T. Higgins did have a good week this week, but the week before that, T. Higgins wasn't that good. So, it's like exactly you're playing Russian roulette, and you don't really want to do that, and especially against Baltimore. Yeah, Higgins had a great week this week. He had 18 points, but the week before that against Pittsburgh, he had 4. So it's like. And the week before that, he had 7, 8, or the 2 weeks before that, he had 7 and 8. So it's like, do you want to play AJ Green hoping he gets a touchdown late in the fourth quarter? Like, no. You just don't start the Bengals receivers.
So let's move to tight end.
Okay.
And talk about a man who has just shoved knives in the hearts of many, being, I would say, inconsistent at best, is Mike Gesicki. He had the stretch of games against the Jets and Cincinnati and Kansas City in like 3 straight weeks, and then missed New England's game, but he had 10, 19, 21. It was looking like he was starting to come back and be that tight end we thought he was going to be, especially the tight end we saw earlier in the season, and he kind of fell off a cliff. He played the Raiders in Week 16 and had 7 fantasy points. He did have 7 targets. I'm not concerned because he's going to get the target share. He's going to get 6, 7, 8 targets, and he has an easier matchup against Buffalo. And Buffalo give up a lot of fantasy points to the wide receiver position. So if he's getting the target share and he's putting up fantasy points, I feel like I'm okay to start Mike Gesicki, even if he's been inconsistent.
He did almost have a touchdown as well. Fitzpatrick overthrew him by like 10 yards, like right over his head.
Happened to Tua?
They benched him again.
Dude, a lot of things happened in Week 16, and I have no idea
I don't know what. Did you watch football at all this week? Like
I did. I watched so much football. I feel like there's so many things that happened that I didn't see.
Like you don't watch the primetime games. Is that what it is? I don't know.
What day was this game?
This was the Thursday game.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, sorry. This was Saturday. This was a Saturday night. This was the Saturday night game.
That's what it is. I can't. Yes, I watched that game.
Okay.
We'll just say yes.
I know what you're
I
gonna say.
didn't watch that game.
Yeah, but
my family would murder me if I watched football every single day.
Tua did good, and it's like it's so weird. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk to you after the show about it because I don't want to ramble on about it. But they protect Tua a lot.
Yeah,
and they put what Brian Flores says is when they're trailing and they need a spark and they need someone to just sling it down the field, they put Fitzpatrick in.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter.
Right, but it's like, why not just let Tua sling it down the field, and if he throws an interception,
I'm going to say it's safe to say don't play Tua this week.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. But yeah, on Mike Gesicki, though, he gets the targets against a good matchup. He's a good start. And even though he's been inconsistent this year, he's still the tight end 6 or 7.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about the final guy really quickly. This was a little bit tougher because he is a waiver wire pickup in a lot of leagues.
Yep.
And you may have had him on your waiver wire on Thursday, and if you picked him up, you may be tempted, to start him against Pittsburgh. And it depends on a lot of scenarios. There's so many variables in this situation that it leads it to being. I don't like uncertainty when it comes to fantasy players, and so I'm not really I don't like to touch it, but he had a good week last week and the week before with 12 and 10. He had 15 targets this week, 7 catches.
With no receivers.
No receivers. But the worst part about his 15 targets against the Jets, he only gave away 10 points.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
Yep.
Like, that's horrible. That's like lower than I don't even want to talk about it. But against Pittsburgh, even if he gets 15 targets, if he's only able to cobble together 10 points on 15 targets against the Jets, I'm really concerned about what Austin Hooper can do against Pittsburgh. And we pegged this man as a bust from day one. It was the easiest bust I think we chose for the entire season. It really was, yeah. Because a lot of people were excited about Austin Hooper, and
it's like the tight end 6.
He's an okay tight end in a passing high octane passing offense, but the Browns offense, it's just not.
And they have 3. They use all 3 of their tight ends as well.
Yeah, so I'm not really excited about Austin Hooper. If you picked him up, even if he's going to get that target share, I just don't think it's going to be good target share against Pittsburgh. So I would sit him.
I agree.
Okay.
Don't have anything really much to add. And those receivers are coming back. The Browns receivers are
coming
back.
Okay. So. All right. So that will confirm
Yeah.
the suspicions that we have about these players. But anyway, there are your starts and sits for Week 17. We have one more show left this week. Just one. And then you can enjoy your new year and give us a week off.
Yeah.
I guess. So we'll talk to you tomorrow, Fantasy Champs.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.